Welcome to the Self-Aware Leader podcast. I'm Ron Oltmans with Lead Skill, and today we're going to be talking about mindfulness for leaders. And I'm really excited about this topic because over time, I've really come to see that mindfulness is like a really, really important, but very simple practice that really helps anyone, whether you're a leader or not, but is particularly helpful for leaders when it comes to growing our emotional intelligence. Because that's one of the first requests that I often hear is when people learn a little bit about emotional intelligence, or when they come to just understand how important emotional intelligence is. One of the first things that people want to know is, so how do I get better? How do I improve my emotional intelligence? And typically, I will say one of the things that you can do that's doable and that will make the most difference is to practice mindfulness. And so we're going to be tackling that today. And maybe it's helpful here on the front end for us to just put this in the context of a quick reminder. What is emotional intelligence? So my working definition for emotional intelligence is it's about being aware of and able to manage emotions effectively, both in myself and in working with other people. So that sort of definition helps us see some of the different dimensions that we've discussed on this live stream, in fact, in the past several episodes. So you can learn more about different aspects of that, like self-awareness. We did a deep dive on that recently. We've talked about emotional intelligence too, and the different realms, the different domains of that model that I shared about, including motivation, which is one of the subsets, one of the domains, one of the 5 areas within emotional intelligence that we look at. So today we're not really going to be focusing on any one of those 5 domains particularly, but we're going to be talking about how mindfulness helps us grow in each of those 5 domains and in emotional intelligence just overall. So I want to welcome Angela, my co-host here, and we are together sharing about emotional intelligence for self-aware leaders. And Angela, I just wanted to welcome you on to the program. No. And you're a great conversation partner for me, so that I'm not just broadcasting and just talking off my head and talking about things. You help ground me and remind me about things that are really important, and you give me a different perspective on things. And I think that's one of the key things I would emphasize here, that goes back to self-awareness. One of the misconceptions about self-awareness is that it's an inside job and you can figure it all out on your own. And that's absolutely false. One of the best ways to grow in self-awareness is to be in relationship with other people, because what you can learn about yourself by spending time alone is invaluable, but it's incomplete, because what you can learn about yourself in relationship with other people and what others have to tell you and teach you about what they see in you is something you just don't have access to apart from having relationships and being in contact with other people. It's one of the reasons why I encourage leaders to do 360 feedback, to do a formal process of collecting and inviting and asking for feedback from other people around them, and making it as safe as possible, making it anonymous, and letting other people who see them and interact with them, know them well, give them the feedback that they need to hear. So welcome today, Angela.
Thank you. So the definition, if I recorded it correctly, is the ability to manage one's emotions effectively. Yes?
That's one part of it. And I would say that gets half of it.
Okay, yes.
No, maybe even a quarter. I'd just say a quarter, because managing myself and my emotions effectively is what we call self-regulation.
So I would like you, well, just take the floor and start sharing a little bit. I'll let you refine the definition a little bit, and then you can put it on the screen. So I am in this journey because I thought I managed my emotions pretty well, being Chinese from Singapore, with the kind of background that I was raised in. I don't, even though, not all Chinese are calm, but relatively, we come from a culture where we are pretty calm. I'm on the side where I'm a bit more self-expressed, and but I was aware that from a very young age that I didn't regulate my emotions as well as other people around me. And in fact, I remember that when we got married, I didn't think that I want to get married just because I would have children. So it took me a while, about us 10 years before I was ready to become a parent. And during those 10 years, I did a lot of self work to make sure that I have greater self awareness and know how to manage my emotions. Journaling, writing, becoming an author, exploring my creative self and space was something that I took on. What I was surprised was that, like when you said, developing your EQ is not a solo process. It gets better, especially when you have other people to work with. So the rubber meets the road for me when I became a parent.
Yeah.
While I was still involved in the business, I was very, very active in making sure that this project of 20 years as a parent was a full contact sport for me. Okay. It wasn't that I wanted to farm my kids out, because if I could do that, I would live in Singapore and have domestic helpers to make sure that's possible. But I lived the last 20 years or so in the US, to just, what they call it, raise the kids by your own bootstrap. Is that what it's a phrase? Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened in that process was, whoa, emotions came to the forefront where I thought I realized I need to learn how to be regulate even that better. In fact, I became a public school teacher at one season of my life, just to have that full daily contact of like stuff coming at me. and, and having unflappable equanimity. That's a phrase I borrowed from, I believe it's Daniel Goleman. Unflappable equanimity at dealing what's at hand, because um, uh, and so I find that even after all these practices, I'm still learning how to have higher EQ. Uh, I find that the season of my life, that it is more essential, because if I don't have that um, EQ, which bleeds over to better empathy, I can become very intolerant. And that's why we have this kind of conversation in culture globally, anywhere, it doesn't matter, that as we get older, people eye roll at old people or older people because we become more intolerant. And I like to, and I'll close with this. I like to say that as we get older in life, it is totally possible to be a human being of great empathy. In fact, greater EQ than what we were once before, a young mother or a young child or a kindergartner whom we all love. We all love being kindergartners. I feel that we can go back to where we once were, uh, just wonderful human beings that come from love. And I think EQ is one of the things that we can all develop as part of this human puzzle of becoming fully alive and being human. I have talked a lot.
No, I love that. And some
I
of the
know
things
you
that you
can't hear enough.
well, some of the things that you shared, Angela,
Mhm.
really kind of go to the heart of it, and I appreciate the personal sharing. It brings me back when you were talking about how um, parenting really introduced you to how much you don't have control of your emotions, and that side of things. I'm recalling one of the books that we had when we had our when we were having babies. Honestly, the one by the Zens, John Kabat-Zinn and his wife. I think her name is Myra. Um,
Yeah.
I may not have that right, but anyway, they co-wrote a book called Everyday Blessings, which was really about the practice of mindfulness brought to the parenting journey. And we had that book, we referred to it, tried to embody it as much as we could early in our parenting journey. And
Yes.
John Kabat-Zinn is one of these pioneers of the mindfulness practices. He's been researching in Massachusetts, and teaching and writing on mindfulness for decades now. And I really appreciate some of his insights and his work, which I've drawn on in my own work as well. I think the other one that you were really helped by, that you put here in the comments, is the book by William Martin, The Tao of Parenting, which is taken from the Tao Te Ching, the Chinese classic. So did you want to say something else about that?
Oh, yes. Thanks for correcting me. I interviewed Bill recently. Yes, if you Google his work on Amazon, it's William Martin, and he's a phenomenal human being. At his age, 78 years old, he's still sharing a lot of gems on his YouTube channel. All right. All right. Where do we want to go today?
Since our topic is mindfulness, and we're like 10, 11 minutes into this, and we haven't really jumped feet first into mindfulness itself, besides just talking about how it's a really, really fundamental, it's a really important practice for emotional intelligence. Maybe we should start there and just, explore some of the dimensions of what mindfulness is and what it isn't, because frankly, people sometimes misjudge or have misconceptions really about mindfulness,
Okay.
and those get in the way of either not even practicing mindfulness at all, or practicing mindfulness in a way that doesn't tap the full riches of the practice.
I would say, so how does a person who's mindful look like? And I came across this quote. It says, if you defend, you just move yourself away from self-inquiry. And so I believe that someone who is mindful about, who lives a mindful life, who practices mindful living, you tend to not be as defensive. What do you think?
Yes, I would
Are you there?
of
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Defensiveness is one of those examples of reactivity or reacting. And I think
Mm.
that's the bigger idea of what mindfulness helps us with, is not being quite so reactive to things, whether it's a disturbing thought or an emotional state, or what someone else does that upsets us or distresses us or makes us angry, or just gets on our nerves. So being reactive is kind of the bigger issue. And one specific aspect of that is defensiveness, that, I'm guilty of this. I'm really defensive about certain things and tend to defend instead of saying, wait a minute, why do I feel the need to defend?
Yeah. And I think we're in the zeitgeist, in a time where we all are wanting more peace. And so this mindfulness conversation is very essential and very useful for everyone, particularly leaders, because we cannot have any more. I mean, not that the world cannot deal with any more chaos, but it just doesn't help. I think once upon a time, I think when I first came to the US, I hear things like drama queen, high school drama. At that time, I feel that all of us could handle all these drama with humor, and we could be light about this. But a lot of the current drama and what's happening right now is that we just like, we can't handle it anymore. No more. Stop. Time out. And so we're tired. We're exhausted of drama, of chaos, of so many things that all of us are seeking. Like, what is the way to handle ourselves, situations, problems, issues with to use Daniel Goleman's word again, I'm not going to quote and say unflappable equanimity with much greater peace, and not be so dramatic and angry and upset about it. Okay, so
Let's take a moment, though. Those are two long words. What is unflappable equanimity? Especially if people are like, not quite sure about the second word, equanimity, what that means. How do you, explain that phrase from Daniel Goleman? Explain it, but also what it means to you. So let's just talk about the words themselves, and then I want to know why you've tagged it a couple of times. What speaks to you in that phrase? So do you want to explain what unflappable equanimity is, or do you want me to take
I
it on?
wish I had my iPhone and the visual. I was walking some time back and I came across a neighbor's yard in which they had a dragon. It's a plastic artifact in which when the wind blows, this dragon just flaps its wings and just keeps going.
Okay.
Okay. And I looked at it. It was very interesting. It was a cute little artifact. Probably a young family lived there, and so every time the wind blows, it flaps continuously and won't stop. And when the wind dies down, the wings of this dragon artifact, plastic artifact, stop flapping. And I just thought about how many of us are like that. When something comes at us, we're just spinning and spinning. We can't help ourselves. We're in that spot. The artifact is just, stuck on the grass. Okay, this I'm not sure the proper term to describe this. It's like what do we call it? I've seen it.
The inflatable dragon.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't inflatable. Like it's just all flat pieces, put together by wire and plastic.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I
Interesting.
wish I have this visual, and it's like when you fly your plane run, and then we see it in the FBOs and the wind socket, and then you have these, you know, the like a balloon of those strings, and then
Okay, so
they
it's like a windsock
like a
sort of thing.
windsock, because you can tell from the windsock like where the wind blows.
Right, right,
Right,
right.
right. So imagine this plastic, dragon with the wings being able to turn every time the wind blows.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
Whereas
I
the
haven't
rest of
seen
the
it.
body,
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'm picturing it.
so the rest of the
So
body is stable,
so
and
my
then yeah.
picture, let me share my
Mhm.
picture of unflappable equanimity. I'm going to go with the live the live option, the live birds that I've seen and experienced, because I think about ducks on the pond
Mm.
who are swimming across the water, who look pretty graceful when they're swimming. And if you could see their feet, their webbed feet underwater, they're
Oh,
flapping
yeah.
like that. But
Mm.
above the surface, they look calm and they're purposeful, and they move along, with some
Mm.
ease and some grace.
Mm. Mm.
So I would contrast the ducks
Love that.
on the surface of the pond with those
Yeah,
birds that we've got now,
yeah,
behind our house. We have a gully, a long, long, gully with a creek
yeah.
or a stream in it. And we have different types of birds there, but I'm thinking of these particular birds that are black and they sit kind of low in the water. But when
Mhm.
these birds take off, they start, I don't think they run on top of the water, but they start flapping their wings furiously and they're hitting the water, and they fly really, really low above the water for quite a long time before they seem to have heavy bodies, until their heavy bodies kind of take flight and they lift up above the water. And I think of those birds, whatever their name is, I don't know what it is. I think of them as not having unflappable equanimity, because to me, it looks like they're trying really, really hard to just get airborne. And so they've got to flap their wings furiously and really make a great effort out of it. So I think myself and probably quite a number of people around me that I see are kind of like those birds. We're not unflappable, and equanimity to me is a sense of peace and keeping our balance and our calm
Yeah.
in the midst of challenges or difficulties. That's what equanimity means to me. So an unflappable equanimity is, man, you are just not easily upset or, disturbed, and you can really keep your peace even when it's rough, even when things are just going crazy around you.
I'm no Navy SEAL, but last year
No, you're
I decided
not.
decided to go to the deep end of the pool at the Y to test because I almost drowned when I was a kid. And even though I swim, I just have this fear that I cannot, I cannot, that I might drown and I get into trouble if I go to the deep end.
Yeah.
Well, last year I gave myself the challenge to go to where basically the military people were training, the local military guys were training at the Y. Those recruits, or I can't
Oh,
remember
yeah. I think they're training to pass their fitness exam for
exactly.
the Navy. They're young guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So and someday when they keep on that practice of training, and probably they'll become Navy SEALs. So I went to the deep end. I remember how I saw and observed how many people, including some elderly folks, were treading water at the very deep end, and they look so calm. And then
Mm.
so when I decided to go to the deep end and try that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to be like this, like what you just described as the duck, kicking at the, just to stay afloat. And I needed to be calm and keep kicking. I can't panic. I'm that me and water and deep end. I just go into panic mode,
Mm.
and I have to keep calm inside, then kick water and stay calm. And then I was like, man, I can float. I can do this deep end. Because usually I would try this on the shallow end so that if things go wrong, I can still touch the ground, the floor pretty easily.
Yeah.
But I mean, I felt like, oh. So when you mentioned the analogy about the duck and the flapping, with the feet flapping, I realized that that's what it is. It's like it looks calm on the outside, but inside you're just doing what it takes to keep calm, keep balance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. This is when I give these analogies, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is like after years of talking about mindfulness and practicing it. So I want to just take it down to simplest things for now. Simple way to increase mindfulness. One of the things when I talk about, stumbling across this artifact in my neighbor's yard, practicing nature walks, quiet mental health walks in the neighborhood was very useful. In fact, the other day, one of our sons came down and said, Mom, are you out again? I said, yeah. I said, why do you take why are you outside all the time, take these walks? I said, I need it. I needed to just that 20-minute out there and then come back. And then I will have a new idea, a new way of looking at things, a quicker way, a faster way. Um,
Mm.
I like being productive. And so I have at any one time many things going on, but I don't want to just put things out there that doesn't make sense. So I need a lot of mindfulness to do to I like to I like to bring my full attention to my work. Yes. So nature walks is one way.
Okay.
Journaling, as we mentioned, is another way. I know in the company you created the breath work it was a book that you also wrote a book in 2000. I think you began it in 2006, 4, I can't remember. It
2006. Yeah.
was put out last year. Very simple book, but it's a one that you know don't underestimate this. I don't underestimate the simplicity of it, because some of the best writings I see is simple. The steps, once you understand the steps, it is just the beginning. That's all I can say. The steps are just the beginning, and you broke it down, the steps. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the breath framework. Is this where the part where you want to introduce that part about the breath framework? Because the steps is easy to comprehend, but the practice of it takes a lifetime.
Yeah. In fact, okay, so I will talk about the book here in just a second. Let me, though, set this up a little different way. So um, I read a book with a group that is really helpful, helps me sharpen my saw, you know, keep growing and developing myself. We read this book a little bit earlier this year, and I came across this like 3 sentences that I found really, really powerful, and I wanted to share it. This is from Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, and it's called The Happiness Hypothesis. But listen to how he sets this up. I really like it. Suppose you read about a pill that you could take once a day to reduce anxiety and increase your contentment. Would you take it? Suppose further that the pill has a great variety of side effects, all of them good. Increased self-esteem, empathy, and trust. It even improves memory. Suppose finally that the pill is all natural and costs nothing. Now, would you take it?
My answer is no. Did I fail? Did I feel your test?
And I'm just, I want to play with that a little bit. So I'm curious, why not?
I'm thankful for all the teachers in my life, including the emotion of anxiety, impatience, anger, lack of empathy. I'm thankful for those. If I don't know the dark, unpleasant things about me, I would not know and aspire and desire and work and seek and pursue the things that are good. You have done, you did a really good breakdown and introduced me to the work of axiology, which is this the study of good judgment. Is that right? Would that be accurate?
Yeah.
And about goodness that Hartman pioneered, many, many decades ago, alongside with, he's right there with Maslow. And so, but his work is still, being discovered today. What is good? Why do we pursue good? What is good for myself and for society? If I had not looked at the darker things, to use Star Wars analogy, I don't think I would be so intense in wanting to find out what is good. So I don't need a pill.
Fair
I like to do, like you said, I like to do things the hard way. I like to think. How about you, Ron? What about you? Would you take the pill? Well, I mean, if you take the pill? Okay, let's say you take the pill. Okay, that's just the answer for people. If you take the pill, what do you think that's going to produce for you? Faster happiness now?
Well, let me just make sure you understand what you're declining, what you're turning down.
Okay.
You take the pill once a day, it reduces anxiety and increases contentment. It has a lot of side effects. All of them are good. Increased self-esteem, empathy, and trust, and even improves memory. And remember, it's all natural and it costs nothing. So the only thing that makes me say, no, I wouldn't take it is the fact that it's in a pill. I don't like pills. I don't like things that are artificial, like, modern medicine's great. And if I really need it, I will take it. I will take medicine. But I really do not like the idea of taking a pill, especially, a pill that gives all these benefits, because I'm by nature a skeptical person. There it is. My defense mechanism is kind of set up here, that I'm just not that trusting of all these promises and claims if it's in a pill form.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. Okay. The pill exists. This is what Jonathan Haidt says. The pill exists. It is meditation. And so it's really not a pill. And that, most forms of meditation, all that they require of you is not taking a pill, but just sitting still and focusing on one thing, like your breath or a word, or tuning into like what's going on and just paying attention to it, but not judging it, not analyzing it, not beating yourself up over it. That's what meditation is. And that's really what the practice of mindfulness is. It's not rooted, it's not really any particular religious or spiritual, practice, although it can be practice that way. You can do Buddhist meditation, you can do Christian meditation, you can do Taoist, and all sorts of Hindu meditation. You can do it religiously, but you can also do it what we'd say secularly without any religious context. And it doesn't require taking a pill. But that's what Jonathan Haidt is saying. Meditation has been studied. It does reduce anxiety. It increases contentment. It has a lot of side effects like increasing your self-esteem, your empathy, your trust. It improves your memory. It costs nothing except the time that you spend doing it. But that's true of anything that you spend, any amount of time on. And it's all natural. Like, you don't have to do anything that is harmful to yourself, your body, your psyche, really. And I like that if it's not in a pill form. I like that. And that's one of the reasons why I, wrote this, is a guide to mindfulness meditation. It was some practices that I really put together in 2006 when I was much younger, earlier on the path of moving toward mindfulness and meditation. And then I didn't do anything to bring this out in public for many years until earlier this year, 2022, when I published this about, the end of July. And right now it's only available as an ebook, either on Kindle, on Amazon, or you can get it, directly from me. But I haven't put out a printed form of this, but I've got it on my phone here. And, it reminds me of some key things, like sitting, taking a few minutes to tune into, do a check, do a scan, and which I call breath. It's a framework. And just being able to start noticing what is going on. And through that practice and doing it over time, over, multiple sessions, over days and weeks, I actually find that I'm able to name my emotions, disentangle myself from my thoughts, not be quite so reactive. I'm able to be with other people and be more empathetic, to listen, judge a little less. Now, all of those are great things, right? And it's not like I practice them all great or, effectively all the time. I don't. I'm still defensive. I'm still reactive. I'm still judgmental. I still do all the things that make me a less than perfect human being. But mindfulness meditation helps me tap into the better side and not be quite so reactive, quite so judgmental, not so anxious. That's the benefit.
I used to think that maybe when a person gets older, then therefore a person's spirit is calmer. But I've come to realize that that is a myth, not a truism, because I've met many young people who, because of their own life experience and lessons or self-awareness journey, they are sometimes calmer and wiser than older people. I come from a culture and a race where it's expected, or we have this assumption that when you get older, you definitely have more wisdom. And that's true, because life lessons and experiences will teach you things and you become more self-aware as you enter your third chapter of your life. But I think we are having this as part of our company, Lead Skill. And what we're trying to put forth out there is that this is a skill that you can learn to have. Mindfulness through meditation helps increase your EQ, and it helps you make better decisions, help you handle things better way. It certainly helps me become more patient. I was observing myself at something that had happened just 72 hours ago and still unfolding. And I was thinking to myself, like, is it because of age, or is it because I um, um, I'm learning this EQ journey in helping me resolve this, in taking care of the situation. I realize that it's just being aware. I'm still very aware and upset at how things have unfolded, and I'm annoyed that the situation, that it could lead to that, despite all the systems, the back end backups that you and I have thought of, and it still happened. And to use some of the language that I hear from culture, which I don't, it's like, they use the word like stuff happens, like, you know, and I have to be okay with it. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Whenever things that we really, really don't like are going on, and we have to just deal with it. I mean, even if we can't change the situation, the what of what's happening, I think we can still have some influence or some impact on how we respond to it.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty real and fast and raw, and I don't want to take the conversation any way. Like, for instance, I was bugged by something on my left eye since last night.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was out walking, taking, and in the night, I suddenly became present to this thought that just came up. What if I go blind? And it's not unheard of, because one of the pastors that we know, their sons went blind as they go into their 30s, and one of the marriages broke up, and it's just a lot. I was like, it's just not like a inevitable or evitable or kind of thing, but what if kind of thing. I'm not trying to think of the worst. I was like, what would be what's happened to me? I'm like, wow, a lot of what I do will have to change.
Yeah.
And then as I was thinking and breathing and taking what you said, the sort of word breathe, just to observe. Because at first I was panicked. I was like, okay, and observe the breath. We can just pull it up. And I realized, oh, that was my thought. I was like, my thought. I'm like, okay. My heart started to race a little bit, you know? And then my mindset, I noticed like, was at first I was like, man. And then later I was like, and then I remember as we walked toward the stoplight, and I just thought to myself, okay, I'll start a podcast. Because I can't see, but I can talk still. I was like, okay, no biggie. And that was it. So all that took was just like maybe 5 minutes versus there was a word that you said, and I loved it. It says, overthinking is ruminating. Or I've seen some signs out when we're at some gas stations and says, stop, stop, stop. Let me overthink this. Let me overthink this. In humor, Texans have really great humor, snarky humor.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't have to overthink. And then I was back, and then I came back. It was just a few minutes. I came back, and I was dealing something else. And and I could be fully present for the person that I need to be in conversation with, which is my mom.
I appreciate that.
My eyes still hurt. I don't know what's going on, but it's okay. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's fine.
You brought up the breath framework. This is something that is featured in the book that I wrote, that I found really helpful, is a way to check in on like what's going on, just like our definition of mindfulness. It helps me be aware on purpose, aware of what's happening both inside and around me in the present moment. So you start up here, if this is a clock, you start up in the 1 o'clock position where body is. And so you'll notice these words, they spell breath, BREATH. Start with your body and just do a scan. What's going on in my body?
Yeah. So that was what I did, Ron, just to interrupt you, because remember, I took off my glasses. I said maybe my glasses, my lens in my glasses cracked, and that's why I'm observing this, vision problem. And you checked it and said, no, there's no crack. And I was like, well, I'm seeing stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that. Yeah.
And I think a lot of mindfulness practices, if we can tune into like what is actually happening in and on our body. When I say on our body, I mean our skin, they like to say is the largest organ we have, but it's like our skin senses heat and cold. It senses air movement. It's like we take in a lot, but we're not always aware of it. So our body is tuned into these things, and then what's going on inside of our body, whether you got a tummy rumbling, whether you've got a slight headache, whether you've got muscle tension in your shoulders or in your lower back, or if you feel kind of tight, in your hips or your knees. So I'm not trying to suggest, any of these things, but it's interesting as I say those things, I often find that people like, they suddenly become aware of like, oh yeah, I'm experiencing these things. I'm dealing, it's like, but I wasn't tuning into it, in the moment. And now you can also be experiencing all sorts of other things in the body that are pleasant. You could be feeling a sense of well-being and peace. That's possible. Or maybe you had a good meal and you're feeling very satisfied and fulfilled. You could be breathing calmly, fully, deeply, and just have this sense of like being at rest, or what we call repose, and just being content. So there's any number of things you could be experiencing in or on the body. But that's the
So
first thing that we tune into.
I don't know how much time we have. We're going to go to all that, but because I want to do even more and ask questions like the body is like, so a body scan, head to toe, muscle tension. So it's a scan. Because I have a question that came up for me was like, well, if you have vision, you are aware of how your body look like. So
If you have a mirror, sure. Or if
yeah,
you're looking down, but the one part of your body you can't see without a mirror
we
is your
all
face.
have a relationship with our body. So
Right.
does that interfere with how we practice mindfulness? Because sometimes we like the way, like our body. Sometimes some people don't like their body. Some people love their bodies too much. So am I taking the conversation away on this meditation work? Because I'm curious, like, will I present to in the US, not the rest of the world. I mean, not as much as, but a lot in the US. There is an obsession with how people see their bodies.
The way I'd like to answer that or respond to your question is, I'm talking about tuning into your body in a very objective way, like a doctor, a physician, or maybe a scientist, a researcher who is right beside you, the sort of way that they might tune into you. Or like the last time you went to the doctor's office and they take your blood pressure, right? They put the cuff on. Usually it's a nurse who's helping out, but they put the cuff on, they take your blood pressure, and they're tuning into what your actual blood pressure is. There's a systolic and a diastolic, and then your pulse. They're not concerned about stress, anxiety, how you feel about this. They're just taking a reading, purely factual, purely descriptive. You have a certain blood pressure, blood pumping through your veins and arteries, right? So I'm talking about a body scan is like being as objective as possible. Like I'm having a little bit of a headache, or I'm sensing some muscle tension in my neck. I'm tight there. And even as you tune into that tightness, sometimes we have a natural tendency to just kind of relax a little bit, like dropping our shoulders and drop the tension. I'm not even talking about doing anything about it. And we're just talking about tuning into it and observing what's going on in the body. So when I say body scan, head to toe, and I mentioned muscle tension is just one example, we often I don't observe my muscle tension until I intentionally ask the question or focus on it. But once I do, it kind of alerts me to the fact that, oh, I'm carrying a little bit of tension there in my body. And it makes me ask the further question, why? But I'm just talking about observing at this point, not judging it and not turning away from observing because I've got, thoughts about it, or I've got a certain attitude about my body. So I'm not saying these things aren't closely related, like body acceptance or body image or your self-image. And, you have a certain concept and picture of yourself that you were mentioning at the beginning. However, those things are not the same thing as the way a stranger or a physician might just do pure, simple description or pure, simple observation of what is going on in the body. Does
Got
that
it.
make sense, the difference?
Yes, very much, very, very good. I like that about, yeah, it's not about the conversation of body acceptance or whether you're satisfied with your body image, but just to, when you're doing your breath, as you breathe, one of the steps is just notice, what's going on inside your body, and then just, take notes in a factual way. Do I feel hot? Do I feel cold? Is there parts of my body where I'm feeling itchy, uncomfortable, or I don't even feel pain or no pain or even no feelings. Yeah, that kind. Where my
I'm not
hands.
asking anyone to ignore or suppress their thoughts and their body image and all that. We've got a whole category for that, on the other side of the wheel here, the thoughts. We're going to get to that in a moment. But
Okay.
for now, for body, it's just to do a scan and, tune into it, like you said, factually, and just, observe what is actually going on.
Yes. We have at 46 minutes, and I know this conversation goes to an hour. So how many, do we split this into two-part conversation, or you want to do a quick run through? How would you like to take this?
We could always do a deep dive and do multi-part for mindfulness. But for now, I'll just hit the high points. And I mean, you asked the question, you were curious, but actually it's not so out of line, because how I responded to that helps, I think, anyone listening to this see that, how you respond, how you look at your body when you do the breath framework is kind of how you're going to do each one of these. We're just tuning in and noticing them. We're not trying to analyze. We're not judging them.
Okay, let's go to the heart. So how do we practice the heart part?
Okay, so that's the last one,
Oh, I'm sorry.
typically
So we
sequence.
go,
Now you can do
so we
them
go
in
clockwise.
you could do them in a different sequence, like
Okay.
what you just did. You went from body to heart. I'm not saying you can't do that. I
Okay.
typically will, so I can remember to check in on these different stations. I'll go through in a clockwise fashion, just like the arrows show, go from body to room to emotions to attitude to thoughts and finally to heart.
Yes, and
But
that's what I started doing, sorry, and then I ping pong. After I did the BREATH, I was like, "I think I got this," so I kind of like go all over the place. That's how I do that stuff, but,
so
you
just now when I said pay
yeah.
attention to what's happening in
Mhm,
and on the body, when I mentioned the skin, your
mhm.
skin is your interface with the external world, right? And so room is where we consciously tune into everything outside of ourselves, external to ourselves. And so you may not be in a physical room. You could be doing, mindfulness or the breath, check, even outdoors. When you're not in an interior space in a building, you may be outside. That becomes your room, if you will. The great outdoors could be your room. And the point about room is just noticing things like lighting. Is it light or dark, or, just kind of average? Are there sounds around you? What is the quality of the air that you're breathing? Is there a smell in the air? Are you picking up the scent of anything. And then there's all sorts of other things that you could tune into about the room. And the point is just to notice the physical environment that you're in. You are in a particular space or room, so just notice it and tune into it.
What is the purpose of that?
It helps us with mindfulness, because remember what mindfulness is. It's being aware on purpose of what's happening both inside and around us in the present moment. We are influenced and shaped by our environment.
I noticed people have very, at least many people I noticed here, because I come from the tropics. I grew up in the tropics, so sweating, all that, no biggie. I just go to an air conditioned room. I'll go into the subway, and then just I'll be cool. I'll cool off. But I notice here people have a very low tolerance for if it's a temperature that's too low or too high. They will immediately get up and go adjust whatever thermometer. I've seen it in young people. I've seen it in adults, whether it's in the classroom or in public places or at homes. So am I supposed to get up once I notice, like, oh my gosh, this is really hot. I think I need some air. So is it
the whole purpose of mindfulness is to increase our observation and noticing, not to start trying to fix things or change things in the moment. Now, if the physical environment is so uncomfortable such that it is going to be like impossible to practice mindfulness at all, or if there's a fire around you and it's unsafe, of course, get up. Of course, change what's going on. But if it's just slightly uncomfortable, or if it's a lot uncomfortable, but you can still summon it to practice mindfulness, I'd say don't change it. Just like when you're aware of a really troubling thought, I'm not asking you to make that thought go away or try to suppress it. If you tune into your body and you notice a headache, I'm not saying get up and go take an aspirin or a painkiller or something like that. Just notice. Just pay attention.
Okay, let's talk about emotions. So we have external, internal, and then emotions. So where am I moving? Into the heart? Get back into the heart again?
With emotions?
Mm-hmm. The next one is emotions.
Yeah. With emotions, we're talking about what scientists would call affect, or like what you're actually feeling on an emotional level. I feel, and just fill in the blank. Not I feel like, which is actually more of a thought. If you say, I feel like, eating, or I feel like, someone just turned me off, or someone really pushed my buttons or whatever. That's not a real feeling. That's really a thought. It being expressed in like emotional terms. So I feel sad. I feel happy. I feel calm. Those are emotions and feelings.
So
okay. One of the things that may help in this is using a emotions wheel, a feelings wheel, to help you explore more aspects, and give names to what you're actually feeling. You've talked about this before, using it, especially in the midst of the pandemic, and how checking a feelings wheel pretty often during the day helped ground you and helped you to name some of your feelings.
Yeah.
So when we're doing the breath check using this framework, emotions are, one of the things that we can, tune into, pay attention to, is, and just filling in the blank of I feel blank. What are you feeling right now? Again, just notice it. In fact, let me go to this other one. Attitude mindset is how you are currently set in relationship to the world, to your own emotions, to your thoughts, your heart. And this is a little bit of a difficult one for some people to grab hold of, the abstraction. But the point is, we all have an attitude at any moment. We have a mindset about us. It's not always easy to tap into it. And you know what? As you're doing mindfulness and you don't have words for your mindset or your attitude right now, that's fine. The point is just to ask the question, see if you can tune into it and, name it. And if not, that may be something to come back to another time, or another session later on when as you develop more skill in mindfulness, you may be able to put your finger on a name for the particular mindset or attitude that you have in the moment. As a practice this year, I did an exercise where I tried to list out a lot of different mindsets and kind of come up with a catalog for myself, just like the emotions wheel. And I had about 75 plus different mindsets that I was able to bring to mind. Things like generosity. Am I coming from a generous mindset? Or scarcity? Am I kind of like clutching and holding on to things and treating the world and other people like there's not enough pie to go around? It's a limited sort of pie. So that's just two mindsets, two examples. Another mindset is win lose. I win, you lose. Kind of a competitive mindset where everything is a competition,
Yeah.
and I'm in competition with you for attention or for getting ahead. I have to win, you have to lose.
Mhm.
Another mindset would be win-win. It's like we can both win. I can win, you can win. And that's a more collaborative, cooperative mindset. So there's a lot of different mindsets we could be currently experiencing. And this is the time in mindfulness when we can tune in and ask ourselves the question, what mindset am I in right now? And it's okay if you don't have an answer, but we're just tuning into it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not on my game. Not I'm always on a game, but I did see. I was going through. I was decluttering. December is about digital declutter and physical
Yes.
declutter and all
Yes.
that. And you did send me the mindset examples, and I took a look at it yesterday when I was. It's a doc document. This particular platform only accepts PDF, so I need to convert and all that. But I did look at it, so it's very present to my mind, and that was very useful to have that 72 mindset examples you created. So thank you for that.
I
I'm gonna
would I would just say here, Angela, if I can do my shameful commercial plug in this moment, the work that I do with leaders as a coach, as a leadership coach, as a consultant for business people, I think one of the places where I add a lot of value to my clients is helping them tune into their mindset and to improve, to take their mindset up a notch to a more productive place. And there's different tools that we have to do that. I would be happy to talk with any individuals watching or listening to this who are curious and want to explore it. Everything from taking you to a lab where we actually put the probes on and measure, like do an EEG and tune in your brain waves, and we could do that. That's on the high end. To on another aspect would be just taking a simple survey, a quiz, and helping to uncover things in your mindset, whether it's EQ or acumen or some of the things you talked about early on in this in this episode. So there's all different ways that I help clients tune into their mindset. These are typically things that we don't access every day, and we don't have the technology to tune into it on our own. You usually need help or a facilitated guide to help you in that process, and that's part of my work as
Yeah.
lead skill.
Well,
So
that's one thing I do appreciate about you because I yeah, that's why maybe I appreciate about you, which is you able to create things simple and make it unpack it for me, someone like me, because I'm like usually like what? Can you just explain it to me? I'm that kind of person. Like, please explain. It's like don't use big words to make me feel like I'm. You don't use big. I can deal big words. Okay, I'm not dumb. But if you can just say things simply, please do. And that's what I appreciate about you. And I also love, getting into nitty gritty, big stuff that's mind bending, and just like, like give it to me. And when you talk about the lab investigation and research work that you do with another group of people, I was like, man, I love that. I love both of it. So that's what you're skilled at, Ron. So, and unpacking whether, yeah, go
so
deep
let's
or simple. So let's go to the next one is thoughts, right?
Yeah, let's wrap up the last two. So thoughts are the things that most people who are introduced to meditation are pretty quickly, almost instantly aware of. Is if you start meditating and you try to focus either on your breath or on one word, you suddenly become aware of the chattering in your brain and your mind, of all the thoughts that are there. I mean, we have them all the time, all day long, but we don't often take a moment to be self-aware that we're just constantly thinking and generating thoughts. And when you practice mindfulness, we actually take a moment to say, okay, what am I thinking? What am I saying to myself? Or what am I experiencing in my thought life? What are some of the, the things that I'm saying to myself, or that I'm replaying over and over in my mind that others have said to me or about me? So thoughts, judgments, beliefs, all of these sort of things. I'm going to reduce it down and just say it's all thoughts, but we give different weighting or sort of power to it. Like if you really, really hold to the thought and you defend it and you say it's really, really true, it becomes a belief.
Yeah, I totally. Whoa, because
There's a lot there, right? A lot to unpack.
you mentioned that because it's like, when I grew up with what I grew up, and then I moved to another country where everything was just like ground zero, start all over again, and so I had to come basically meet myself, my thoughts, and there was just so many that I was like, man, I'm just going to be in therapy all for every day for hours. So what I did was I journaled instead. And I was surprised at the volume of thoughts I had, that I decided to, at one point in my life, not to buy expensive journals because it was just so much. I just needed to buy inexpensive journal just to just pour it and just get it all out. And that's why I came up with, the idea that I just junk journal, just pour it all out. And then over the years, I noticed something. It's like almost like when you're cleaning a pool or something that, like a pool. I'm thinking of a pool right now, or the hot tub. And so after you clean it, it's like all the gunk is removed. Not that, gunk will not fill it up again, but it's like it's cleaner. So I'm present to fewer chattering thoughts now. And one of the things I that's why I love that you are introducing journaling as one of the things into your company,
Yeah.
as a leadership tool, because for the longest time, you didn't have, you used just assessment tools and training and writing curriculums, for your clients. Right now you're exploring some of these things that I don't even know, what do we call it? Soft skills? They're not soft skills. That's just essential skills.
Essential skills. Yeah.
Essential skills for
Yeah.
the new world, and the way that we're doing right now, because many of
Right.
us are working alone.
Right. So
Um,
the thinking mind or experience is something that, especially in the Western world, that we're very acquainted with. I mean, our education schooling system sort of prizes thought, clear thought, and articulated thought, and reading other people's thoughts and expressing our own thoughts. And, we could talk philosophically about how we've inherited things from like Descartes, and, elevating thinking above all else. Like, I think, therefore I am. Wow, a powerful statement, but it's not quite true, because it's saying our whole being, our ontology, is dependent on our thinking, and I think that's wrong. And this is one of the points why I've incorporated something from the spiritual traditions as the sixth and the final step on the breath framework, which is our heart, and learning to tune into what is going on in our heart. Now, I'm not talking about the physical organ in the body, which is our body scan. Okay, you could tune into your heart and the beating of your heart. I actually point over here, but it's actually in the center. I know that. But I'm talking about the metaphorical heart, the heart as the center of our spiritual energies, the heart as the place, if you will, that we experience generosity or kindness or love, not as just an emotion, but even as a choice or as an action, as a we exercise love to other people even when we don't feel loving. That comes from the heart. That's something that a parent has to learn to grapple with pretty early on after you have those babies, is like when the baby's crying in the middle of the night and your sleep is disturbed, are you going to put aside your own desire to get a rest and take care of the baby? That's a very generous sort of gesture or action that you have to take on as a parent. That only comes from the heart. And so as you do mindfulness, you tune into what is going on in my heart right now. Is my heart open? Is my heart compassionate? Is my heart receptive? Or is my heart closed? Is my heart guarded? Am I armored up? Am I protecting myself? It's like, what is the quality? What is the spiritual energy going on in my heart right now? And I have to say, for leaders in business, this is one of the areas that some people really tune into it, groove to it. They get it. And a lot of others are very uncomfortable talking about these things. Like, this has no place in the business environment. But you really can't ignore it, because every day leaders ask their employees to work with their heart, to generate their own motivation, to give 100%. Well, that only comes from the heart. That's kind of like not just being transactional and I'm only going to give only what I'm paid for, but to give a little bit extra, to give a little bit beyond, to actually serve customers and to serve them not in a flat sort of way, but in a way that has real humanity and warmth. That only comes from the heart. I have a lot to say about this, obviously, but the point is, in mindfulness, tune into what's going on in your own heart, and you'll start noticing whether other people are also living from their heart or not, and to what level. And that's a really helpful thing to tune into. And there's definitely a place for heart in business. And the leaders who don't see that or deny it are just short-sighted. Or maybe you can get away with it because you have a very transactional business and there's no room for the heart in what you're doing. It's very cutthroat business. Okay, I get that. You're not the kind of business that I'm, going to help or that I can be useful in, but, bless you. And I hope it goes well for you.
We're at 107. So I want to
Yes,
say
we are.
the products are on the website.
Or will be when we get the website back up. So that's the issue. We've got a website down. We've got several websites down. And man, what a failure of leadership on my part, but also for the company hosting us. So we've got, a lot of responsibility there. But anyway, leadskill.com. By the time you watch this, especially if it's after December 8th or 9th, hopefully it'll be up, and you can check them out. And we've got an Etsy store too. On Etsy, you can check out Lead Skill, and you can find some of our products there. That's a good backup. So it's always good for a business to have backups.
That's right. Having all the different servers, because we have all these websites for years and years. So this is totally unexpected.
And if you want things that tap into the heart, that are made with heart, that will beautify your room, your surroundings, go to Simple Daily Joy. That's a great store on Etsy that Angela created. She's got some wonderful products there you can check out. And she also has a website, which we'll get back up very soon, simpledailyjoystore.com. And these are some of the things that she just creates from a place of joy and real heart. And that's one of the things I love about her. And so she's taught me a lot in this area. All right. So that is mindfulness in a nutshell, mindfulness for leaders. And I hope it's been helpful. I'm really passionate about this stuff. If you can't tell, love to take leaders one step further, several steps further into tapping into this tremendous reserve of energy that is found inside of mindfulness and upping our game in terms of EQ or emotional intelligence. So I really appreciate you for tuning in. We do the live streams every week, middle of the week on YouTube. If you want to join us live, we'd love to have your questions. You can, ask them in the chat box. And, for a select few, we even bring people into the studio sometimes and put them on the screen if they want to, be there, or we have guests. We haven't so far, but we will be doing that in the future. So I'm going to sign off here now. We're over time a little bit from our intended 1 hour. But Angela, thank you for bringing your heart and being here. And thank you, our viewer, for tuning in. And catch our other videos on our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of good stuff on leadership, emotional intelligence, and mindfulness. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.